so I don't get anybody angry. Okay, here we go. ACS12, Pyroclasm, heavy style, double crit rate, using Burning Wrath, violent. So this weapon does blaze damage, primarily, and it's all about having these stacked particles that give you damage. These stacked particles can crit, so you'll be doing critical blaze damage when you have Dragon's Breath rounds. So it's important that you build this into a crit build. So you'll want to use Wildfire in your offhand. Doesn't matter what calibration, but you need Vulnerability Amplifier, always. That's your #1 go-to. I'm using the Lone Wolf set, so Lone Wolf Hat with Momentum Up, again focusing crit damage by using Violent. Lone Wolf Mask with Retrusion Explosion, so that way I still am gaining crit rate and crit damage, as well as additional crit damage by doing Violent. Lone Wolf Gloves, Crit Amplifier, because I like having both rate and damage. Personally, 5% more rate does not outweigh 15% more damage, in my opinion. Again, focusing crit damage, weapon damage, and then damage against great ones, elites, or normals. Fire Rune Boots are my key item, using Covered Advance, because it's just... I don't know anything that's better than Covered Advance. You may want to consider using Ruthless Reaper, so you can minimize your reloads, but that's really if you're fighting a lot of adds. If you're doing any boss that does not actively summon adds, then Ruthless Reaper is really not going to do it for you. But if you're doing something like Lee, Ruthless Reaper is probably going to be better than Covered Advance, because there's a lot of adds. You're going to be doing a lot of killing. I use Bastille Pants. High health means more damage with Deadshot. Every crit hit gives me more crit damage up to 45. Considering that we're trying to never actually reload outside of the first reload, where we get 4 Deviant Particles, this is just great. That way we'll always have 45% bonus crit damage. Lone Wolf Jacket with Quick Comeback, so that way we can refill the magazine when we heal. Our Cradle, we're using Anti-Void for the shotgun buff, Rapid Aid because healing is important, Deviant Energy Defense because not dying is important, Tactical Combo because you're going to be swapping weapons between Wildfire and the shotgun, Elemental Sense because it still does elemental damage, Blazing Detonation because it still does burn damage, Marked Strike because we're going to be using enemies that have Bullseye debuff on them, we're using a gun that gives them debuff, sorry, and then Status Damage because we still do status damage. You can't let that slide under the radar. It doesn't focus on status damage, but it still buffs us, which is nice. So for your deviation, I personally prefer to use the Doggo. Doggo makes me a happy boy, most notably because it gives you weapon damage when your sanity is low, and then it also makes enemies that are attacked by the Doggo take more damage. So in this case, let's just mag dump. Once we have 4 stacks, we can reload, since that's going to increase our damage. Before we do that, pull out the Wildfire. Let's give it a second to let it reset. Alright, so now we'll do 3 Wildfire shots. Pull out our main gun, reload, call in the dogs. Now we have a buffed AA12 using Dragon's Breath. As you can see, those crits are hitting for about 13 to 14, that's an 18,000 damage crit. 18,000, pretty consistent high crit damage.